Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Girl Up, Girl Talk series. We're super excited for all of you guys to be here, and thank you so much to AT&T for being our presenting sponsor. My name is Naomi Naik, and I'm the Communications and Digital Media Associate at Girl Up. Girl Up is inspiring a generation of girls to be a force for gender equality and social change. Our leadership development programs have impacted 75,000 girls through 4,000 clubs in nearly 125 countries and all 50 US states. Our virtual learning series features expert panels, youth-driven content, and community actions youth changemakers can learn from, and a way to engage with their peers across the globe. During today's Girl Talk, you can submit questions in the chat throughout the event. Each speaker pairing will have a few minutes to answer a question or two from the audience. Our first speakers today are Aly Murray, co-founder and executive director of UPchieve, and Girl Up leader Florence. Aly Murray is the founder and executive director of UPchieve, an edtech nonprofit that provides free online tutoring to high school students. She's also a proud Latina, math nerd, and community college grad. After earning an associate's degree, Aly transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, where she graduated summa cum laude with a degree in mathematics. Following Penn, Aly worked on the trading floor at JP Morgan for 2 years before leaving to focus on UPchieve full-time. For her work on UPchieve, Aly has been featured on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list in education and honored as a Roddenberry Fellow. Florence is a 22-year-old Girl Up leader currently pursuing her bachelor's degree in pharmacy. She has conceptualized an anti-asthma body spray that is meant to target the respiratory system in asthmatic patients. Her innovation has won multiple awards in Zambia, such as the National Youth Award under the Medical and Technology category, as well as the Youth Pharmaceutical Innovator of the Year. Let's hear from Aly and Florence.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Naomi, and thank you to the Girl Up team for having me. So without wasting much of your time, I would like to introduce Aly, who is with us. She is the co-founder of UPchieve, which is an online platform in which low-income high school students are connected with tutors. So Aly, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. So excited. Actually, I was really excited to meet you, Florence, because I've been really impressed by what you've been accomplishing as well. And so it is just so exciting to be here.
I was so excited to actually meet you. Like seeing you right now is like, oh my goodness, she featured in Forbes. So that's so amazing. So this feeling is so mutual.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was definitely a highlight of my career so far. But hopefully, there's a lot more that I'll be able to accomplish and support more students. So, yeah.
Definitely, you are a legend in the making. Anyway, let's begin our fireside chat. So my first question is, what were some of the key moments in your life, your studies, or your career that led you to be where you are in your STEM career?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that I definitely didn't know that I was going to pursue a career in STEM until probably like the end of high school and college. And I think that for me, it really started with developing an interest in mathematics. And so the first thing that was kind of key is I never had a math teacher who made me feel inadequate for being a girl, right? And even if I was one of the only girls in my advanced math courses, they never made me feel weird about that. And so I think that, you know, I'm fortunate that I found a study where I had great teachers who were supportive, and I think that my like interest in mathematics, like it started more of like, this subject, I actually thought math was kind of easy because it all made sense to me. It was all logical and it felt like I could take these specific steps and land at the right answer. And so I didn't actually like math much at first because it was kind of like not that interesting. But what I realized, I actually took like a higher level math course and I had a bit of a rude awakening. So because once you get to like theoretical math courses, it's the complete opposite, right? It didn't matter how much I studied. By the time I got to the exam and was asked to write a proof, it was really like no guarantees that I was going to be able to get the right answer in that moment. And so I found it to be really, really creative, really challenging, kind of like solving puzzles. And I think that that was like, you know, what got me really excited about studying math. So I actually ended up majoring in math in college. That was like, I think that was the first thing. And that led me to my first job working in trading in finance. And I'd say like the other thing that has been really, really key in helping me, leading me on this path to a career in STEM was when I learned how to code. And I found that to be one of the most empowering things that I've ever done in my career. And so when I started at my first job, I was on this team of, I was on a team of, I was a little over 10 people. I was the only woman on the team, but I was one of several junior people. And I was the only junior person on the team who didn't already know how to code. And it wasn't a requirement for the job. And so the other senior people on the team would say, oh, like, don't worry about that. You don't need to know how to do that. Like, you can be successful without that, like focus on these other, you know, like aspects and skill sets. But I remember thinking like, well, no, I want to be able to do that too. Like, I know I'm capable, right? And so I ended up teaching myself how to code on that first job. And it's something that to this day has helped me feel really comfortable in my role, in my career in STEM, and knowing and having that confidence that like, I absolutely can sit down and write some code if I need to. And like to this day, I'm the person who does a lot of the data analytics at UPchieve. And I'm not dependent on anyone to be able to get the information or answers I need because I developed that skill set. Yeah.
Okay, you know, that's really amazing because most of these startups that people start, when a lot of coding is involved, if it's a female, they mostly say, no, I won't do the work. I'll just come up with the idea and you do all the coding and all the data analysis. But it's amazing that you actually decided to take the step and say, you know what, I'm going to code and I'm going to do all the data analysis. That's really amazing for me. And I'm so inspired right now. Thank you so much for that.
That's such
Yes.
a great point. Yeah. I think a lot of female like founders, they end up finding a co-founder, a technical co-founder. And I'd love to see more women realizing, no, wait, I can be the technical co-founder. I can learn this skill set. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just amazing. And I just wish a lot of children can grow up learning coding at a very young age. I think that would be really, really helpful to many of us. I wish I learned it as well. But anyway, if you taught yourself, then I can do it.
Yeah. There's still time, Florence. You should go. Like I was you're 22, I believe, right? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
I was 22 years old when I learned how to code. And so I totally agree. Like I wish more girls were learning to code earlier, but I have to say that like, that's not too late at all. I don't think it's ever too late. And so it's going to be an empowering skill set to learn no matter how old you are. Yeah.
And I'm going to do it.
Awesome.
All right. So our next question would be, what are some of the challenges that you think make it harder for girls to actually pursue STEM careers? What do you think are some of those challenges?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are definitely challenges. I wish I could say like there were no challenges, everything's solved, but that's definitely not the case yet. I think one of the challenges was a lack of representation. And I think that matters because as you're a young woman starting your career, it really does help to have role models, to have people you can point to say, oh, this is what success looks like in this career, and be able to imagine yourself there. And so at that big bank that I was working at, in my field, there were pretty much no immediate like senior leaders who were women that I could point to. And I had to look outside of my team and in some cases outside of my company. And so that's one thing I would say is like, that's a challenge, but I think not like confining yourself to look just within your company, right? I think a lot of women and girls have role models that in their first, maybe they can't find the female role model within their narrowly defined team or company, but they can find it at another company or on another team and to develop those relationships. The other one that's a little harder to talk about, I think, is sexism. And I think that it's getting better. And like I mentioned, I actually had no problems with sexism throughout my entire education. But when I was working and started my first full-time job, I did interact with people who were sexist, and either it was kind of subtle and like more of a feeling of like, oh, like, why are they always so surprised when I do well? Or why do they say things in a certain way? And I even interacted with people who were blatantly sexist, right? And who had told me that I only got the job because I was a woman. And I think my advice on like dealing with that, if you do run into that, which unfortunately I think a lot of women will, is like, don't listen to them, right? That's the most important thing in my opinion, is like, they are insecure, right? It comes from a place of feeling inadequate themselves. And so I think that you can never let somebody tell you that you can't do something that you know you can, right? Or that you haven't actually earned your success, because you have. So that's kind of my first piece of advice. And I think like for me personally, the way I handled it was really just to focus on myself and make sure that I was really killing it in my job, right? I wanted it to be like indisputable that I was the very best at my job. And so I worked really hard to make that true, right? And I think that one of the people that I mentioned who was blatantly sexist towards me ended up getting fired for being bad at their job. And so that was kind of a moment of like, I felt really good about that actually. I was like, oh wow, I didn't have to do anything. I just focused on myself. The one caveat to that being that like, I think you have to put your health first. And so obviously like physical safety and also mental health, right? Like you should never stay in a situation where you feel or tolerate a situation where you feel unsafe or you feel like it's harming your mental health. And so like, that's a scenario where I'm like, just get yourself out of that situation. So, yeah.
Awesome. Actually, my next question was going to be for you to advise these young girls on how to overcome these challenges, but I guess you have answered that one as well. But I can point it out to the role models part. How do you think we can solve this problem of not having role models?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to look a little harder to find them right now within STEM fields. There are a lot of great like networks of different, like depending on your specific industry and like, you know, your age range and things like that. There are networks that you can join that will help you find someone outside of your company who can be a mentor to you. That being said, I think the best thing I can say is like, let that motivate you to become the role model, right? Like if you're not seeing people in your industry who are the role model for you, that means you should, like, if you are passionate about that industry, you can become that role model. And remember that as you get more and more successful, hopefully you can fill that role for other young women.
Okay, that's really, really awesome. So when I was looking you up, I was interested in what UPchieve is all about. So I looked you up on YouTube and I saw you pitching UPchieve in front of so many people. And I was listening attentively. Honestly, if I was an investor in that room, I was going to be like, you know what, here's $1 billion, please go ahead with this project, because it just sounded like a really, really great idea. So I wish I knew about UPchieve when I was in high school. I mean, it would have helped me a lot. So can you just tell us a little bit about UPchieve? Because I'm sure the audience, some of the people don't know about it. So can you like elaborate further what it's about?
Absolutely. So UPchieve, we're an edtech nonprofit. We're working to democratize access to academic support. And so this idea that really like you should be able to get help anytime you need it. And right now we're really focused on reaching low-income students in the United States. And so unfortunately, not yet available in other countries, but the way it works in the US is students who attend, actually the majority of public high schools in the United States are eligible for UPchieve. And so students can check their eligibility, and if they're eligible, if their school's eligible, they create an account and they can request help in one of our subjects. We offer right now math tutoring and science tutoring, as well as college counseling. They can request help anytime, so 24/7. And we actually pair them with a live volunteer tutor or coach in under 5 minutes. And so the idea is to make it extremely accessible for students to access the support they need to achieve their academic goals.
Wow, that is super awesome. Why aren't you here in Africa? We need you.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, I feel it is so helpful to a lot of students out here, because you know there are moments where you go on Google and you're like, I need help, and Google is just like, no, we don't know the answer. So yeah, I think UPchieve is like, you know,
yeah. I feel like every single student from like recent history, right? Like if you grew up with Google, like you can relate to that experience of like frantically like typing something into Google, like a homework problem or something, and being like, how the heck do I solve this? And like how awful it feels to like waste a ton of time trying to find the answer on Google. And so, yeah, this hopefully eliminates that.
Exactly. I wish we had the whole day because this conversation is so interesting. But anyways, let's see what the audience has to say, what questions they are asking. So I'll just read in the chat to see what questions the audience is asking. So the question is, does the prestige of the school matter for STEM?
Yeah, so I think they're asking about for college, if I'm interpreting that correctly. And so what I would say is that you should, when you're, thinking about applying to colleges, you should absolutely try to like, I think that sometimes people like underestimate themselves, right? And so don't underestimate yourself and like let the schools make the determination for you, right? Like don't decide yourself that you're not able to get into a really like prestigious school. And so I think that like I definitely encourage students to apply even to some schools that they think they may not think they're good enough at. In terms of your career in STEM, and I don't think this is necessarily the way it should work in the world, but it definitely does make a difference what school you go to. It makes it a little easier. It doesn't make it impossible. If you don't go to a prestigious school, it doesn't make it impossible to get where you want to be in your career, but I think that it's a little easier. And so, yeah, like I think that, for certain industries, they are going to look, you're getting your first job, they want to see on your resume what school you went to. And so, yeah, but I think that like there's definitely ways around that, right? I think networking is a really key way, like meeting people, even if you didn't go to a like the top school or prestigious school, you can still end up with the right career, the career you want in STEM.
Okay, awesome. So we're just going to tackle the last question, then I think we can call it an end. The other question is, what advice would you give us to get a scholarship in STEM?
Yeah. So in my experience, when you are applying for scholarships, although it's like pretty uncomfortable, I hate having to write about myself. But in my work for UPchieve, I have to do it all the time. When I apply for grants or competitions or to submit a bio for like something like this, right? You have to write about yourself and it's super awkward, but it's one of the most powerful ways that you can help promote yourself. And I think that a lot of scholarship programs, they specifically want to hear about your personal experience and your stories. And so where possible, like you should lean into that. And you have to do a lot of like self-discovery, self-exploration, right? Like to figure out, why do you want your career in STEM, right? Like, why is that important to you? And what were the foundational experiences, and write about that and talk about the challenges that you've already faced if you faced them, right? And so talk about, the struggles to find role models and things like that. And so that's my best advice, is the more personal you can make it, the more unique to you, the better your chances are for getting the scholarship.
I really like that advice because, it's really awkward to write about yourself, but I feel like this is the moment where you get to really express yourself, because no one else can write about you the way you would write about yourself. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I like how you brought the issue of networking. Networking is very, very important because it exposes you to even more opportunities than you can imagine. This was super amazing, Aly. I'm so excited that I got to have this side chat with you. This is amazing. Any last words, the audience?
No, I'm equally excited to have been here with you and talk to you, Florence. Looking forward to talking more after the event. And for any girls in the audience, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing, and the field of STEM needs you. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aly. We hope to hear more of you. In fact, you are definitely rising up the ladder, so we're definitely going to hear more of you. Thank you for coming on this program, and thank you to the Girl Up team for having me and Aly on this fireside chat. Back to you, Naomi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aly and Florence. And as you've probably heard, you can actually apply for a $500 STEM for Social Good grant to create a STEM solution for your community. So that grant application portal reopens in spring 2021. So head over to girlup.org/STEM to make sure that you can check it out when it opens. Now we'll hear from Joanne Wilson, Deputy to the Director, Radio Communication Bureau, ITU, in conversation with Girl Up leader Merrill. So Joanne Wilson is an electrical engineer with more than 30 years of professional experience in the telecommunications sector. She's worked for a plethora of amazing organizations such as AT&T, Lucent Technologies, Arraycom LLC, Compass Rose International, and ASRC Federal. She received her Master of Science in Electrical Engineering from Stanford University and her Bachelor's in Electrical Engineering from Southern University and A&M College. And then we have the incredible Girl Up leader, Merrill, who's been coding and involved in STEM since kindergarten. She's a former FIRST Robotics team leader, a mentor who has taught adults and kids to code at a nearby university, the founder and president of Bainbridge Island Girl Up, and the founder of a By and For Girls Giving Circle. So let's hear it from Joanne and Merrill.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Naomi. Thank you for having me here. Hello, everyone. And thank you, Joanne, for being here today. And I'm looking forward to having conversation with you. I have a lot of questions for you, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of your insights and also personally for some advice from you as being an experienced STEM leader.
I'm very happy to meet you, and I very much look forward to this conversation. So take it away. Shoot.
Of course. So the first question that I have for you is, what was it like for you to pursue a career as an electrical engineer, especially in the telecommunications industry? So like, what were some of the skills that you knew you had to cultivate? Like, how did you prepare? And do you feel like you added a different perspective as a woman in the field? And you can elaborate on that however much you want.
Thanks. Well, first listening to the previous session, I feel like I need to give some background. So I graduated from Southern University in 1981. So just for the math, I'll be celebrating my 40th year anniversary from graduating college. So it was a different time then. That being said, I think there are a lot of things that are very much the same. So one thing that's the same is that there are definitely fewer women and fewer people of color who are in engineering, relatively speaking. And at that time, so this was sort of toward the end of, or in the, after the sort of civil rights movement, they were looking for young people who were, in terms of scholarships and things like that. I was always a geek in the sense of I was always, I was in the math club in elementary school. I took math all the way through high school. Like Aly before me, I didn't have any teachers who ever suggested that girls weren't as good at math as boys. And in fact, I think my classes were always fairly balanced in terms of, girls and boys in the math and science classes. I had the fortune of going to a summer program that actually still exists, may I add. So if you're in the US, it was the Minority Introduction to Engineering. I think now it's the Minority Introduction to Engineering and Science. It's at MIT, where they were kind of introducing minority kids to the engineering fields. I think the thing has always been that math and science it's so concrete that if you study, if you really are good at it, then you can demonstrate your competence. It's not a subjective field. It's pretty objective. You can either do the math problems or you can't. You can either solve them or not. So I think the first thing is just dedicating yourself to being good. To studying, to doing your homework, to doing not just the problems that were assigned, but the bonus problems, those sorts of things. Because in engineering, the thing that's always respected the most is competence. knowing what you're talking about is is the most important thing you can do as an engineer, as a scientist, is you actually have to be credible and competent at what you're doing. And I think once you pass that hurdle and you know that that you're good, you've worked hard, you've burned the midnight oil was the expression that our the dean of our college said, in terms of doing your homework and everything. Once you did that, people were willing to be on your team, to work with you. Yes, you needed to be able to work together with others because very few, big problems in science or in technology are things that people solve by themselves. Usually it's things they solve as part of a collaborative effort, but you have to hold your own as a team member. So the first and most important thing is be competent, know your stuff, do your, and know that there's no reason why math or science is any more difficult or challenging for a girl versus a boy. I mean, this is like I said, this is an objective field. So from that standpoint, think of the opportunity there. The other thing is, oftentimes we look for role models, and I was blessed with having some very good role models, but they weren't the role models as who were prior scientists. At the time when I was in school, it was my mom. It was women, because I remember very vividly that. So my mother, along with the other women she worked for the Census Bureau, and at that time, they were editors of the Statistical Abstract for the United States when they did the census. Some guy would come in, be their boss. They would train him. He would go up the ladder. They would continue until the next guy came in, became their boss. They would train him, and they would go up the ladder. Women at that time were not given the opportunity. I felt lucky coming in at a time than I did when there were more opportunities than my mom and my aunts and the women who are obviously older than me. But the thing was, just go in. Don't assume that you're going to get a handout, but at the same time, don't assume that you're going to be dismissed, because in engineering and science, the key thing is knowing your stuff. I think that's the best advice I can give anyone is work hard and be competent. Be good, and that means putting in the extra hours.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I like how you really highlighted competence and knowing that you have the capabilities to keep going and that you don't need to have approval from anyone. And I think especially as being a younger STEM leader and being an advocate, that I've had a lot of issues with being seen as competent or knowing what I am doing, and having strong role models like you've been talking about. Like my mom is also a huge role model to me. She's such a strong woman and has been such an inspiration to me throughout the years. And that has definitely helped me so much through any struggles that I've had with trying to make a mark on the world and in my community and on the people around me. So thank you so much for sharing. And honestly, it helped me too.
Let me share. So, I don't know how many young women have seen the movie Hidden Figures. If you haven't, it's a must. But it's about Katherine Johnson, who was, and other women at that time who were at NASA. And so, the term computers used to refer to people who did the computing. They were the computers. Computing used to be something that was a women-dominated field. and so, and in fact, when I was an undergrad, computer science as a major had a much larger percentage of women in it than engineering. So I think we have to remember that the key thing in that film was, if you saw the astronaut, and this is actually a true story, the astronaut John Glenn, was going to be launched, and he was going to have to rely on the computations that were made in order for them to know where his capsule would splash down and be able to pick him up. He was more comfortable having the woman the African-American woman, do the calculation and demonstrate that the computer was correct. The electrical computer was correct because of her competence. And that's the thing. Man was willing to put his life on the line because he knew that this woman was competent enough to do the math, the very advanced math necessary for them to be able to pick his capsule up out of the water, when he landed. That was in the movie, but that was actually a very true story. And so I think for us, don't worry so much about will they accept me or not, and so forth and so on. Focus on being good, just studying, being competent, knowing your stuff. And then once you know that you know, and don't be afraid to speak up. And I think one of the really great things for me going as an undergrad was all of my classmates would gather together in the evening in the engineering building, divide up the classrooms available, and work together on problem sets. Literally groups would take over different classrooms and on the board, work out how do you solve different kinds of problems. And whoever knew how to solve the problem, was the one up at the board explaining it to everybody else and working through it together. That built so much confidence in each of us because, and support because you're there with your friends. It made going through engineering as a curriculum much more fun because it's like a group effort to be able to work the problems and everything. And then like I said, and then you learn to work together as a group. So my recommendation for young people going into engineering fields is, form your study groups together, work things out, challenge each other in terms of a little friendly competition on how to work different problems and things. It'll prepare you well for your career later on.
Yeah, I definitely have had so many great support systems, and without a doubt, they have helped me through some very tough times, whether that is like with my education, and advocacy, or anything else. And I think it's so great that you had that support system, and it's just so empowering, and it's so great talking with you. But as my next question, since you are an experienced STEM leader, like what are some tips of awareness and vigilance? Like, are there any like caveats to consider or mistakes that we should try to avoid? Like, I know you touched on this a little bit, like what are some overall lessons that you have learned along the way with all of your experience?
So let me share something that happened with me early in my career. Example that I think I've taken away from it. So I was at Bell Laboratories, and I was going to represent our department at a meeting that was at another location, another AT&T location. And I drove there. It was in New Jersey, and I got caught in a traffic jam on the turnpike, and then I got to this. I hadn't been to that building before. I had a hard time finding a parking spot. I had a hard time finding the room where the meeting was being held. So bottom line is I was late. The meeting was already started. I was late. But I walked into the room, and there at the table, all these guys, all men, all much older than me. Okay, I was the only African American. I was the only non-white person in the room. I was the only woman in the room. I was the youngest person in the room. And I went there and I sat at the table, and they looked at me and they kept talking. Absolutely, okay, she's there. I don't know why she's here, but anyway. And then an issue came up about this new project that was being launched. And I happened to know the background on the project, because I did my homework. I read all the preliminary information and so forth. So I said, and I, asked for the floor, and I explained that this is what had been done, this is what was being planned, and so forth and so on. The meeting stopped. They went around the table one by one and introduced themselves and who they were and what organization they were from, one by one. When I first walked in that room, they completely ignored the fact that this new person who no one had ever seen before walked in the room. As soon as I opened my mouth and said, and gave them information they did not have, all of a sudden, oh, let me introduce ourselves. Let's go around the room, and so forth. And that turned out to be one of the best projects I worked on. The guys that I worked with on that project were amazing to work. We had a successful project. We had a great time. But if I had just sat there going, you know, they would have completely ignored me, you know, but I had to demonstrate that I wasn't just there to be a pretty face. You know, I had to speak up and say, you know, express, you know, these are the background things that people need to be aware of. And so I think that's always the case is, you know, people often are afraid that if I say something or, you know, and oftentimes, and this is an experience that women have all the time, is they will speak up and they will say something and it'll get ignored. And then some guy will say the exact same thing. And all of a sudden it's a brilliant idea. You know, and you look and go, didn't I just say that? You know, I think in that case, you just need to press on. You know, I mean, a lot of times, you know, you can bear a lot of injuries if you take things personally. But the next thing that I think, you know, we have to do is we just need to press on and say, okay, well, you know, and continue on because, you know, it's a phenomenon that happens and we just have to move forward and not let those things derail us.
Yeah, like I have definitely had that experience with being the only girl in the room and having to fight to have my voice be heard, not only as being a girl of color, but also being most of the time one of the youngest people at the table. So always just having to speak up and fight, and having those mentors to encourage you to keep pushing on is something that has been so helpful and so important to me. And thank you so much for answering all of my questions. And I think now,
Let me add
yeah.
one more thing there. And this is important.
Mhm.
You'll be surprised who will be who may step up to be your champion. You know, so don't assume that the older guy who's, you know, looks like, you know, he might not be someone who'd be supportive. He might actually turn out to be your best champion. You need to be open to the fact that you know, the people who may be supportive of you may find that, you know, this person, I think they're smart. I think they're, you know, they're good. I'm gonna support them, you know, and it could be somebody who's not in your line of management or you know, but just someone who says, you know, something, I'm gonna, you know, open a door for her because, you know, she looks like somebody who someone should open a door for. And I think everybody who's made it up in their career has had someone who's, you know, who's stepped up and said, you know, I like this person and I'm gonna be supportive. And you just have to be open for that. Don't assume, never assume that, you know, this person's gonna be supportive or this person's not. You know, keep your eye on doing the best that you can and support will come. I think you just have to sort of believe in the universe in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can find mentors of like all different ages and genders and just people in general from all different times of your life. So I think that's really important to remember. And so I think that's all the questions I have for you. So we can go ahead and answer our question from the audience, which is how can I get other girls around me interested in STEM?
I wish that's the $1 million question. That's what we're all because you know it's funny. I think people need to appreciate that it's fun. Okay, there are a lot of things that are it's fun to be able to do something that really makes a difference. You know, and so I know that we have a hard time finding role models often. Let me tell you about one friend of mine. Okay, so before this job, when I was working for ASRC, we were actually a government contractor, and the contract was with NASA. So for the 9 years I was with the company, I was really a contractor to NASA, and NASA is an incredible organization, as you can imagine, because you know if you ever watch any of the NASA events, the things you'll discover is that they're really, really bright people having a wonderful time doing really cool science. And so that's what you want to do. You want to have a fun time doing really cool science, okay? And one woman there who's a good friend of mine, she is responsible for managing the spectrum management. So making sure that all the radio systems and so forth on the International Space Station, all that they don't interfere with each other. So she's responsible for spectrum management for the International Space Station. She's now also responsible for all of their spectrum management for their activities on the moon. Okay, I have to say, that's a pretty freaking cool job. you know, that's just, come on, let's just face it. That's being able to decide, okay, this is what you're allowed to do and not do, because these are how these systems are going to work together, and this to make sure that they don't interfere with each other. And this woman, and it's not just on the International Space Station. She's not just responsible for the activities in the United States, participants on, people on the station. She's responsible for it across all of the countries that have experiments and so forth. I was out at JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, out in I think Pasadena, and likewise, they had some women there doing some really cool stuff, working on the Mars rover and so forth, and the programs there. There are some really fun and exciting things to do in science, and that we shouldn't just let the guys have all the fun. We need to take some of that for ourselves as well. So if you like math and you like science and you want to do cool things, and I think there's just no question that you want to pursue an engineering degree, and then once you get an engineering degree in either in electrical or computer communications or mechanical, civil, or whatever. In all of those fields, there are some really, really spectacularly interesting, fun, cool things to do.
Yeah, of course. And honestly, speaking to my friends about what I've done in different STEM opportunities has gotten them interested. And I'm hoping that through all the initiatives and organizations that I'm a part of, I'm able to continue spreading that interest in everything. And thank you so much for sharing with me. I loved being able to hear your thoughts about everything. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for having me. And I think we are out of time, so I'll transition it over to Naomi.
Thank you very
much. So much, Joanne and Merrill. Now we are going to hear from Regina Honu, CEO of Soranko Academy, in conversation with Girl Up leader Selin. So Regina Honu is the CEO of Soranko Academy, a leading technology, coding, and digital skills development center in Africa, pioneering the way for young people, especially women and girls, to realize their economic potential, equipping them with the technical and soft skills they need to attain dignified, fulfilling jobs and overcome the gender gap in technology. And we have Selin, our awesome 18-year-old Girl Up leader, a gender equality activist from Istanbul, Turkey. She's the youngest representative of UN Women's Global Gender Equality Movement, He4She, the founder of the first Girl Up Club in Turkey, Girl Up Istanbul, and the founder of Girls Who Code Turkey, where she and her team focus on teaching the basics of coding to young women. So on to you, Selin and Regina.
Thank you, Naomi, so much. Hello, Regina, how are you?
I'm good, Selin. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I am very excited and delighted to be on the fireside chat with you today. You're just such an inspirational leader. Thank you for being here.
And so are you. I mean, I'm so impressed by you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So talking about technology and STEM, I think the reason why technology and STEM is very unique is because it has so many different levels and dimensions. For example, if you don't like field A, there's field B and there's field C. There's just so many things that you can do with it. But for me, why I was attracted to tech field was the inequalities there, the gender-based stereotypes. But my question is, what attracted you to tech field? Can you tell us about the experiences that influenced your decision to develop Soranko Academy, and specifically the Tech Needs Girls initiative, where you mentor women and girls to lead and innovate by learning to code in Ghana?
Okay, so for me, growing up, when you have a certain aptitude for certain skills, you are told what you're going to be. And for women and girls in my country and on the continent, there's so much of a limit to what you can do. So it all started with Pac-Man. I played Pac-Man, I fell in love with it, and I was like, oh, I want to add some color because at the time it was very dry for me. So I was like, oh, I want to change it. And I was told that in order to do that, I had to learn how to code. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a doctor because that was like the box I fell in because I liked, science and math. When I said I wanted to study computer science, I heard a lot of girls can't do it. It's very difficult, and all of that. And so I went ahead to do it. I studied computer science in university. In my first class, I did Visual Basic and I failed that class. I was like, I didn't understand what was happening. And I kept hearing the voices that were telling me, it's difficult. Why don't you just quit and do something else? But then I was like, no, I can't do that. I have to keep going because I really like, engaging with the computer, even if it was from games, it was just the ability to create something. So fast forward, I graduate. For my university, I go into the workforce. I'm the only female. I work in 2 international banks. And I faced it all: sexism, stereotyping, discrimination, everything under the sun, And the 5-second shock reaction when I would introduce myself as a female developer, I would be like, oh, are you sure? And all of that stuff. But also on the flip side, it was the economic empowerment piece because I started earning money really quickly. My earning potential shot up really high. And with that economic piece allowed me to even find a stronger voice in my family and make decisions for myself. So I could decide what I wanted to do for my life because I had already started earning quite a bit because, the skill set that I had was in high demand. And so fast forward, after I thought about starting my own business, even the idea to start a business, and this is what I always say to young girls: we always think about why we can't before we think about why we can. So when I wanted to start my own business, I thought, no, I can't do this. I'm shy, I don't like to speak up. I like to be quiet in the corner. So I had to break that first sense of self, holding yourself back and tell myself, no, I'm capable as any other person. And for me, it was really about empowering the next generation of women and girls. And so setting up Techniques Girls was really my tool or my platform to ensure that we got more young girls in the space as creators of technology. And like you're saying, there's so many fields you can go into technology. And it's important that we have that female perspective in the technology that's being created. It's important that girls get the opportunity to assert themselves. So really, my journey to forming Strong Core Academy and Techniques Girls and all my projects was really breaking out of the mold that society tries to put, women and girls into.
Yeah, as you said, I think just getting out of your comfort zone and challenging yourself can be the key most of the time.
Yeah.
And as you said, there are so many biases and stereotypes and gender-based barriers in every single field, but especially in the tech field itself, there is a hierarchy going on. But like even for me, I have experienced this in many meetings. I have been called, oh, sweetie, like you think you're doing something that's so cute. No, like even this little example shows how much we are facing inequalities in our work field. So my question is, what are some of the biases faced by girls and women in tech according to your observation? And how can we combat these biases?
I'm going to break them into different groups, and I'm going to start first with cultural, depending on, whichever setting that you're coming from or whichever country. When girls are perceived in a certain way, when they start to speak up, eyebrows are raised, like, who is this person that doesn't know her place, So I like what Joanne said about champions. So it's important that, you find who your champion is, who your ally is. You don't have to go in it alone. There's also the bias of having individuals think that, you are the token girl or you were put in there as Ali was saying, because of your gender. You must understand the value that you bring, and you don't let anybody underestimate you or make you feel less than what you are. So expect that, you're going to get some gentleman in the room who is going to be a little intimidated. And this is one of the things that we've discovered in our work, that the men get intimidated that the status quo, the world that they know, where, they are the dominant force, is going to be gone once they empower women and girls. And we have to educate them that that's not the case. You are bringing on a partner, and allies also support you. So in that regard, they're more open. So I think the other thing is men feeling intimidated that, oh my goodness, we are the body source of knowledge. We are the ones supposed to tell the women what to do. So now this woman is going to be empowered and tell us what to do. And we really need to bring the men along in our journey. So that's one of the things we also learned, that it's important that we not only speak to the converted or talk about women and girls, but look at how we can bring men along to understand that empowering a woman, especially in the tech field, brings more innovation and diversity that solves problems in a better way than it bringing a situation where women are going to take over. I don't know what they're thinking, that we're going to beat them or what, but so we really also need to get the men on board.
100%. And this is actually what He for She is all about. I think that's on us. Like, we have cut men out of the conversation for so long, but gender equality benefits us all, and feminism is for everyone. If we want to make gender equality a reality, we need all hands on deck in every field, in every corner, and every aspect in our lives, which is so, so important. And obviously, we're living in 21st century, and with the pandemic going on, our whole lives are virtual. And this is not only for just a couple of months or years. We're in 21st century. Our today and tomorrow and future will be technology and STEM and coding. So what advice or words of wisdom can you share with the next generation of girls and women who want careers in technology? Because many of us are on this call right now in different parts of the world. So what messages would you like to relay to all the young leaders who want to close a gender gap for women in tech?
So I first would like to say congratulations to them for even wanting to take that step. And my advice to them is, to never give up and to see failing or falling down as a learning experience. The tech space is so diverse. There's so many different things that you can do to excel in it. You don't have to go in a particular way. So there are several areas that you can find your voice, express your passions. So look for things that you are passionate about within the tech space, and then go on that journey. And it's very important for women and girls now to have that digital skill, be it digital marketing, coding, network security, whatever it is. Without that digital skill, you will literally be left behind in the world that we live in today. So come into the space, whatever your interest is, if it's fashion, if it's anything else, add technology or add digital skills to enhance yourself so that you are more employable. If you want to start a business, you have more skill sets to add more value. If you want to raise your family, you can raise your family well. As you can see, I have my daughter giving me a difficult time here, but having digital skills enhances who you are and gives you the ability to create things for the rest of the world to use. So I would advise young girls that follow that passion. Whatever your passion is, add digital to it, and don't give up no matter what anybody says, and you'll be impressed and amazed at the results. And I think the last piece is also find your ally and your champion.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I would like to share my personal motto, which is very much linked to what you said: be the change you want to see in the world. It's by Gandhi. And it's just so true. Also, my last question is, so I am the founder of WeGround0, a virtual 10-minute interview platform where I interview changemaker people from all around the globe. And I'm aiming to inspire our generation to take action towards passions, to kind of summarize it. And the question I always ask to my guests is, the definition of success, because the answers I get are very much linked to one another, but also very different. So it's just very interesting to hear everyone's unique response. I wanted to use this as an opportunity to ask you the same question. So, Regina, what does success mean to you?
So for me, success is really about leaving legacy and creating sustainable impact. So when I started on my journey, all I wanted to do was to change one girl's life. And now we've done over 16,000, across Ghana and expanded to Burkina Faso. So for me, success is really about, leaving that legacy and creating that sustainable impact. And I feel that if I've made the world better for women and girls in the next step, that for me is success.
Yes, for sure, leaving legacy. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, if we can inspire only one person, maybe that person is going to be the one who changes it all. It's such a unique experience.
Yeah.
Regina, that's unfortunately all the questions I had. Thank you so much again for joining us, and thank you, Girl Up, for giving me this opportunity. I think we are unfortunately running out of time, so I will hand over to Naomi. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Selin and Regina and all of our incredible speakers today. And thank you for all of those who've been attending and sent in your questions. We're so happy you were able to join us today. Thank you again to AT&T for being our presenting sponsor. And we hope you check out the rest of our Girl Talk virtual panels that are upcoming this spring 2021 at girlup.org. You can also learn more about our STEM programming at girlup.org/STEM, and be sure to apply for the opportunity to receive a $500 STEM grant when the Girl Up grant application portal opens in spring 2021. Thank you so much. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.